The most powerful way of texturing your assets is with procedural texturing. It has many advantages such as realism, variation, customization and low memory usage. There are only two limitations to this technique: portability and your own creativity. If you want to use the material outside of Blender, they will have to be baked, which means your models will also have to be unwrapped. Procedural texturing as a concept uses nodes to build textures mathematically in a shader tree. The power comes from being able to use those textures to drive other components of the tree, and this is where some abstract thought comes in. Here's an example. We can use a noise texture and a color ramp to add variation to the base color. Then we can use that same setup to drive the height in a bump node. If we want to push it further still, we can have it drive the emission. With a few simple steps, we have something resembling a lava material. And we can still change the scale of it if we're applying it over a larger area. Procedural texturing has some recurring elements. They're not a strict formula, but are usually present in some capacity. The first of these is found under the textures category and can loosely be defined as types of noise. Noise textures serve multiple purposes, including color variation, patterns, breaking up repetition, driving bump and roughness, and masks. Another element is the color ramp. This can be used to gradient between colors, assign multiple colors, crunch values together, similar to a levels or curve adjustment in Photoshop, affect bump and roughness, and act as a mask. The third most common elements are mix and math nodes. These can be used to blend materials and textures and create patterns. We can start layering and mixing nodes together to create natural and realistic looking variation, or use it to create patterns. Shader trees can become large, complicated and overwhelming to look at, so to help with that we have some options. With the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you can Control-Shift-Click on any node to see the result of that node and everything leading up to it. So we can go through our nodes step by step to see what they are doing, or preview new nodes that we plan to mix in. Additionally, you can add a frame around a group of nodes and label it. You can also group the nodes of your shader tree and toggle in and out of the group with the Tab key. You can add parameters from your shader tree into the group input and rename them, enabling you to control relevant parameters from a simplified view. This can be thought of like having a parametric modifier for your material. I have set up these 5 materials that I created from Ryan King's excellent procedural texturing tutorials. At first glance, the expanded shader tree looks complex, confusing and unmanageable, but on closer inspection we can see the familiar elements we spoke about earlier: noise textures, color ramps and mix nodes. Once set up, these materials work like smart materials, and you can apply them to other objects and adjust them for a variety of effects. You could build an entire scene out of just one material just by changing the settings. Both Ryan King and Erin Dale are experts at procedural texturing, and I highly recommend both channels for further learning of this subject. What we've learned so far is great for single material objects, but if we want to procedurally texture a model with multiple parts, we will need to use masks. There are 2 ways of doing this, which I'll put on the screen now, but the end goal is the same: to have an image that is white only on the areas of the UV that will be the same material, then a second mask only white on the second material's UVs, and so on. With masks created, you can then plug each mask in as an image texture into the factor of a mix shader node, and procedurally texture into 2 or more principled BSDF shaders. You can also paint your own black and white texture masks, similar to how we did stylized painting in the mid-level techniques video, directly onto the model. This can be useful for less precise and more organic blending, for instance on terrain to paint a worn path through grass. Okay, that covers the majority of texturing techniques you can do in Blender, from basic to advanced and stylized to realistic. I hope you found something useful in this series, and if so, a like, subscribe or comment really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you down the road.